you have to learn about your audience. You have to learn, how to structure an offer, to create a transformation for your target audience, and so on and so forth. But having clarity on your target audience, on the problem that you want to solve, something that you know is a real problem, not that you think, but you see, there is data to show that that's a real problem. So that's very important to get started with. And welcome to another episode of the Code Tribe podcast. Today, we have a very special edition. It's actually the first time I ever do this. But today, the roles will be reversed. I will be the guest and my friend Selena will be the host. And we're going to talk about social media, TikTok, Instagram, content creation. And you're going to have to learn lots of this from me this time. First time ever. I'm very excited. Selena, how are you? I'm so happy to do this with you today.
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah.
It's a different
Yeah, me too.
It's different, when I'm the host. I'm used to it now. It's a different dynamic, but to be the guest, I'll see how it feels, all the pressure, all the questions that I have to answer. So it's going to be interesting for me, for sure. Now, Selena, what do you want to talk about today? What do you want to learn? What are, the most pressing questions on your mind that you want the answer for when it comes to social media?
Quite honestly, I think the biggest thing I'd like to know is about lead generation on TikTok and Instagram. And if you like short form video in general, because it does seem to now have taken on a life of its own. And it feels really, for a beginner, and I mean a real beginner, it feels really quite a complex thing. Hashtags, captions, cuts, templates, time to load, all of those things are really quite difficult on top of running your business and getting your own offers together. So what I guess what I really would like to know is, where do you really start as a beginner, as if you don't know anything? And what are the real kind of 5 or 6 really key things so you can get over the procrastination and the fear of getting started and really get into it?
I feel like there are lots of questions over there and we can talk, for the whole episode about it. And I think the best way, is to really break it down and go over every single thing that you mentioned. But to get started with, I would say, first of all, the reality, which is it's not easy, but it is possible and it's doable. And so many do it and achieve the results that they want and even more. But I just want, first of all, to break this idea, because there are so many gurus out there or coaches who make it seem, super easy and that it can happen very fast, and it can. And let me tell you, Selena, the other week I was having with me here, Jennifer Dove, Tech Girl Jen on Instagram. She has an audience of, I think, 270K followers only on Insta, 130 something K followers on TikTok. She got started this year and she got all of these followers in less than a year with everything happened now. She got started this year and it worked. And but I would say she's an exception. And so it is possible if you know what you're saying, if you have the value, if you know how to package it well, if you know your audience, it is possible for you to blow up, to get those big numbers very fast. But for the majority, I would say, get used to the fact that it takes time, and sometimes more time that you imagine. For me, at least in the game, I think it would be 2 years already in the content or marketing space. And it's only 1 year since it's been very intense. And only after this time, I feel, like I'm finally understanding what the game is about. Like I'm finally seeing the results. So what I want to say, first of all, is that it's a process like anything else. And you have to sort of be prepared for this, because if you go in and you're going to post, reels for 2 weeks and you're going to DM people and you're going to see no results, what's going to happen is you're going to, say, oh, but I've tried it and it doesn't work. It's just maybe not for me, or it's just, you're going to come up with all the excuses in your mind because, you gave it a shot, but it didn't work. But the truth is you have to stay in the game, give it a shot for at least 3 months till you're going to be able to see some results. And I'm talking again about the general case, not about the exceptions or the people who already have, sort of an offer, created a business, or who maybe have an audience on another platform like you have on LinkedIn, which is already more clear on their messaging, on everything else, because that that obviously helps to speed up the process.
And thank you for saying that, because I think it's really important that people understand that there's got to be something else behind it. I think there is this thing about you can just go on there and suddenly business is rolling in. But I think you're absolutely right. What business is it that they're going to be buying, and what value are you offering? And I think that is often skipped over in many ways. So
the Code Tribe podcast is powered by Pensight. I want to take this opportunity to tell you more about Pensight and how much value it can provide you and your coaching business.
Pensight is an all-in-one platform for coaches and educators that enables you to quickly and easily build a highly credible page and sell your knowledge with one-to-one sessions, group coaching, courses, Q&As, digital products, and bundles. Payments, scheduling, video calling, client communications, and everything else is taken care of.
All it takes is 5 minutes to set up, and it's free. It's the smartest way to kickstart your coaching business. Sign up to Pensight today at pensight.com.
You asked me, like how to get started. Well, first of all, before, anything else, I feel like from my experience, what I've seen moves the needle fast and works is when people are clear more or less on, first of all, what their offer is and who they're targeting. But the offer doesn't have to be clear from the beginning, especially if you don't have any offer so far or experience, because of course, how can you know what your offer is before you have any data or input, right? Like you have to learn about your audience. You have to learn, how to structure an offer to match, create a transformation for your target audience and so on and so forth. But having clarity on this, on your target audience, on the problem that you want to solve, something that is a real problem, not that you think, but you see there is data to show that that's a real problem. So that's very important to get started with. First of all, know who you're talking to and know what these people want to learn about. Where are these people? Where can you find them? Can you find them on LinkedIn or Instagram, on TikTok? That's very important as well, because you want to be where they are, right? And then you can think about, the sort of content that you want to put out there, because the content will be a reflection to what these people want to learn about, what these people want to consume. But the most important thing is to know your audience well, because then you will be able to create the content that attracts them and that converts them. So that would be number one. Selena, feel free at any point to interrupt me, to ask any follow-up question, because otherwise I will keep talking.
No, this is really great, because I think when you're starting out, there's so many people doing it their way in different ways. And I think this is the trouble. You see somebody over on the right-hand side doing it over on one side, and then you think, okay, this must be the right thing to me. Do I start dancing? That's not for me. Do I start just talking to camera? Is that for me? Or how do I actually get started? And I think with so many different choices, I think you end up doing nothing. And it's not because, I think it's just because it's the new platform. If you're on one platform, I happen to be on LinkedIn and Quora, but all these platforms seem to have their own ecosystem. And for me, I think it's about, for example, if we could just talk about the TikTok ecosystem, what are the things that I would really need to understand about TikTok before I start, as opposed to any other platform?
Mm-hmm. So I think going back a bit to the first part of your question, something that I think is one of the most valuable lessons that you can learn when you get started, rather than looking in all the places and seeing all the types of content and all the formats and all the coaches or gurus telling you to do different things, right? Because you mentioned hashtags, posting time. Everyone has a different opinion. And my learning is that what worked for some don't necessarily work for others, and the other way around. So first of all, you need to understand that many times there's not wrong or right answer. There is a set of principles that stands true no matter what, and for everyone in terms of, content performance and foundations of content creation, that for sure is. But then there are many variables, and there is no definite answer to things like hashtags, best time to post. It's not. And instead of, consuming your energy, investing it into, trying, but this person said this and the other one said that, what do I actually do? Because that's an opposing view. Try to focus on the principles principles of content creation. And one of those is creating content that, first of all, attracts, captures attentions. And on platforms like TikTok, the very cool thing, and now on Instagram as well, is that you can go there with no audience at all, and TikTok will push your content in front of, let's say, at least 200 people. That's the margin, which are mostly not your audience. And those are 200 leads, 200 people that can come your way without you having nurtured them or captured them before. And when I'm saying this is because those 200 people will help you understand if your content is good or not good. Why? Because as much as you think a piece of a content is good, the people dictate. The people tell you if your content is good or not. You might think that the piece that you put out there is the best that you've created, but if the algorithm, doesn't confirm that, if your video is stuck at 200-300 views, it's clear that you need to change something if you want more people to consume your content. Of course, things like consistency helps, you need to sort of to keep putting things out there, and like that gives you somehow a higher chance of success, that's for sure. But you need to listen to your audience, and the audience will tell you whether your content is good or not, and you want to learn from it, and you want to capture that. But going back to, the most important lesson, I would say, rather than having a dispersed attention, try to find 2-3 people in your niche that, have the results that you want to achieve or have the same target audience, and try to observe what they do. If they already have a good performance on TikTok or Instagram, try to, see what type of content are they putting out there, and try to emulate what already works for them in your own line. But try to see what they're doing and try to stay, focused on 2 or 3 rather than look again all over the place. And that's, I think, one of the biggest starting points. Start small. Don't get distracted because there are so many things you could be doing. Start with one format first of all, or maybe you want to try 2, but I would say start with 1, put it out there and start iterating with that. And more than finding these people in your niche, even more important, maybe choose 1 or 2 people who are good at content creation, who are content creation coaches or help you, create content, and follow them and learn from them and stick with these people. If they already have a big following and results, you can fairly much trust that they know what they're talking about. So just, try to pick 1-2 people, maybe this on content creation, and then maybe in your niche, put that 2 together, and there you go. You can follow what they have to say or what they create and start from there rather than try to figure out everything yourself. Now, an even more important lesson, and then feel free to ask any follow-up questions, is one, probably, I would say, the biggest lesson I learned in content creation this year. And I want everyone to pay attention because this is huge. Many times when we get started, we feel like reinventing the wheel. We feel like, coming up with everything ourselves. When the truth is, the success formula is already out there. And especially when you get started for a long time, one of your biggest hacks in content creation is to find what already performs, what already goes viral in your niche, and replicate that. What do I mean by that? Let me break it down to you step by step. So first of all, you want to open a tool like TikTok. TikTok has a search bar, and then you're gonna, put in your niche. It can be, you insert there your niche, of course, be specific. And then there's a filter button, and you can filter the results based on the most liked content. And then you can choose, over the last 6 months or 3 months. I usually select the most liked content and over the last 3 months. Simple. Again, so let's go over it. Search bar TikTok, insert the topic that you're after, press filter by, and then select most liked, and then over the last 3 months. And then you're gonna see the best performing, most the viral content in that niche over the last 3 months. Your homework is to go pick the content that is relevant to what you're doing or the content that you want to create, and observe what is it that made that video perform. Is that something you can replicate? For example, is it the hook that you see people using again and again? Maybe you see multiple viral videos using the same hook. That is a clear sign for you that you want to take the exact same hook and add it on your videos, and then, create content about that. Look at the length of their video, but more than that, also the script. So you want to take those videos and then you want to replicate the exact same videos in your own life. light. But that's the biggest hack that I discovered this year. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. The success formula is already out there. You just have to become better at doing research and then to replicate that content. And let me tell you, Selena, this has worked for me. I've tried it. The first time I did it, it's insane. No, I will not say the first time, because there were other times I did it. I replicated viral content and it didn't work. Very recently, last month actually, there was this hook going viral on Instagram, which said something like how to become financially independent by the end of 2023. This was the hook. And people were, different creators were using the same hook on screen and then talking about it. Maybe some even had a similar caption, but these are already details. And I replicated this hook and it worked. I think I got 13K views in like a day or something like this, and it keeps growing. So this is one of the biggest lessons I want you to learn. Search for viral content, what already works in your niche, and try to replicate that and keep doing that again and again. You can also, if you want to get into more specifics, for example, another hack would be there is a tool called Sort, TikTok Sort, and it's like an extension on Google. You can download it and then you can run this on your computer on let's say your favorite creator on TikTok. And when you run this, it will sort their content based on the most viewed content. So that will again show you what's the best performing content of this creator. And then you can compare why this content performed better than other. And more than that, you can replicate their best performing content. But this, don't worry about. What you should be focusing on is finding content that is already proven viral and you to finding ways and creating processes to replicate that, fast. So that's one lesson. Now I will pause to let any questions that you have.
No, that was absolutely brilliant. And I think you're absolutely right. I think we forget. I know I'm totally guilty of this. I think I have to sort of start from scratch. And I think also there's a reluctance to kind of copy others, because, no one wants to feel that they're copying somebody else. And no one's niche is exactly the same as somebody else's. I think that is the point. I mean, I know that my niche isn't exactly the same as somebody else's, but it has a lot of similarities to other people. And there's lots of different streams within that. I talk about self-leadership and controlling your job and having a job of ease and flow and not being stressed in your job, particularly if you're a senior leader and things like that. So that involves often things like motivation. Motivation's fairly universal, I know. Things like, taking action, speaking up for yourself and all of those sorts of things. So you're absolutely right. And I think I have to kind of get more into that. What do you think about when you're putting together your content and really trying to come up with hooks? Because I think hooks are obviously feel like a bit of an art and a science, really. And that's something that I really struggle with, because I can write and I can script things, but when it comes to the hook, I'm like, is this the right hook for what I'm saying? I know you sort of mentioned trying to take somebody else's hook, but I find I really struggle with that. Do you have any more kind of tips on that?
Okay, let's talk first hooks, and then I'm thinking to come back to something which I also think is important. But in terms of hooks, here I will give you a very easy thing. First of all, you can search on tools again like TikTok, the best hooks. At least you say best TikTok hooks or best hooks in this niche. And you can see that there are many creators who give you lists of hooks that are already proven viral. That means many creators use them again and again and they perform well. And you just, select, let's say 10, 20 hooks and you see which ones align best with your messaging, your personal brand. And you start incorporating those in your content. So here again, I'm saying rather than you to try to come up with the hook that grabs attention, let me tell you that, most of the best performing hooks are hooks that are used again and again. So you don't have to come up with them. It's just a part of it that is changed and adjusted to your topic. So that would be my first tip. Now, in terms of hooks, there are different strategies. Sometimes the ones that create controversy perform really well because that would generate comments and engagement and that, makes the video perform better. But if that doesn't align with your personal brand, brand and messaging, then that is not for you, and that's okay. You want to find the hooks, that align with your tone of voice, but also, capture attention. And things here that I can share with you are: make it short, make it punchy, and the most important thing, focus on a promise/outcome. So when people see that hook, it usually is around 5 to 8 words. You want them to already know what's in it for them. And I want you to write that down, what's in it for your audience. What's in it for me? Like, why would I stop the scroll and watch this reel instead of the millions of other reels available? What's in it for me? What do I have to gain? And when you ask this question, you realize that you have to answer to that. Like, you want to promise them something, first of all, that captures their attention. For example, how to get 10K months in 10 weeks, for example. This is a bit too long, but you want to make it punchy. You want to make it specific. You want to make it outcome oriented. Like, you might want to put the result out there. Or another strategy that works well is, when you see these hooks that make you think that you will save time. For example, don't do this mistakes like I did. Or it's something that, is like skipping the line, is sharing your lesson after 2 years so that you don't have to do it yourself. So it's understanding that a lot of it is about saving either time or money for people, or it's about love and relationships. It's like few things that really trigger people at the core. And once you identify those pain points for your target audience, then you can literally talk like about their pain points, their problems, and like hit them hard in those, but in short and sort of scarcity/urgency tailored hooks.
Yeah. No, and I get that, and I think you're absolutely right. So once you kind of got the hooks, I mean, for me, that was my kind of biggest thing. So if you're starting off, say, on your account, how many times would you need to sort of post per day? I know this can be a thing for some people. So some people have said, I don't know, up to 7 times a day, I've heard, when you first start off. I mean, this is, quite overwhelming. So what would you suggest, would be a good how many videos to post per day?
That's a very, very good question, and I cannot wait to jump on it. But before that, I just opened a notes document that I have with some hooks that I, took a note of, just so you get an idea of what I was saying before. So for example, this one, you won't believe what happened next. This doesn't really maybe talk to your audience, but you could tailor it. But it sort of creates this suspense, like, what's going to happen? I want to learn what happens. Another one is, maybe this is about the how-to hook or the promise. Want to learn how to, in your case, you insert a skill or something that your audience wants to learn. I'll show you how. Or from this to this in 60 seconds. You won't believe your eyes. Or I'm seeing this, for example, carousel hooks on Instagram, which say, what others learn in 1 year, I'll teach you in 60 seconds. It's like, I know it's insane. It might not align with your brand. That's why I said in the beginning, you have to be clear on your messaging, and you know already the sort of tone of voice that you want to have, because these hooks will reflect again your personal brand. But what I want to tell you here, Selena, is that, they have to catch attention. They have to be powerful, short, concise, punchy, to the point, results oriented. They just, always think like, is this grabbing my attention? When you consume content, you want to train your mind instead of just mindlessly scrolling to observe, why did this content perform well? Maybe write that hook down and use it in your content, or try to change your mindset and start observing, why did this content perform well? Safe content that perform well, safe hooks. Like, you want to look at things different. Now, I said this like this. Going back to your question, why I love it so much, and let me repeat it for those who maybe forgot, is how many times a day should I post? This is something that many, including myself, are thinking in the beginner stages, because we think that this equals success. In short, let me put it like this. The more times you post in a day or week, obviously the higher chances of success you have. But only if, you also iterate on that content, because obviously you're going to have more data points. That means TikTok has analytics letting you understand how your videos performed, and you want to look at that, and you want to study that, because that will tell you when did losers drop attention? Because, for example, you have a graphic that shows you, you retain their attention for 3-4 seconds, but then it dropped. So then maybe you keep the same hook, but you change, that 4th or 5th second. Like, you want to look at these things. So obviously, the more time you post, the more data points you have, and the faster you can iterate and get, your lessons from it. But in general, I want you to know that there is no best number of times to post per day. It's really more about building the habit. And first of all, it's set a goal that is achievable to you, that is achievable not only this week, but next week, 3rd week from now. You want to set a goal that you can keep up for at least 1 month of, let's say, maybe it's 3 posts per week. That's it. That's what you can do right now with what you have. But your goal is to hit that every single week by the end of the month. Then maybe it's adding, 5 per week from 3. And then maybe it's 7, 1 every single day. This is the one that I'm having right now for myself. My aim is to post a post every single day. And I know many successful creators who do this. Some of them even do 5 per week and leave weekends aside. It's, again, no success formula. It's more about the habit that you're creating of consistently putting content out there. But also, let me tell you this, Selena. It's more also about creating quality content. It's not just about putting content out there, because the game is getting tougher. There are more people creating content like ever. There's more noise like never before. So it's harder, for content that maybe performed better in the past to perform as good right now, because the quality increased, which means you have to level up. That is not, I'm not saying this to scare you. I'm just saying this to show you the reality, which is, it is true. Like, the quality of content consumed increased, the attention span of people decreased, which means it's no way around things. You just have to learn how to create better content. But my point with this is, instead of, creating 20 pieces of content that are not that good and well thought out, you just maybe want to create 5 that are really good. So focus on quality rather than quantity, because I've seen creators even posting 3 times a week, not maybe 3, 4. But that's enough for them. Of course, they already have an audience. They're very strategic with your content. This doesn't work for most people, but I've seen it work for them because they create high quality content that, let's say, instead of putting 3 videos out, each 10K, they will create one that generates 50K plus views, because there is strategy behind content creation, and there are things that you can do to make sure, or to sort of predict how your content will perform. So my lesson with this, Selena, was focus on set an achievable goal, try to keep that up for the first month, and then obviously carry that for the next month as well. But it's more about, creating the habit first, making sure you do that consistently. And then, when you sort of have a good sense and you can handle that, then, you can sort of increase the number. But first of all, set an achievable goal and focus on building that habit.
And on that point, how long do you think videos should be? So, for example, I have been reading that, longer form content obviously performs better at this point in, say, TikTok, but obviously without the other things that you have mentioned, like the hooks, obviously no one's going to look at it if they're not going to go beyond the video. They're going to scroll if they're not going to see it. So that doesn't really matter. But what type of kind of length would you start off as? Would that be 30 seconds? Would it be less than that? 10, 15 seconds? What was your kind of guidance would be on that?
Yeah, so of course I will tell you this, and we can talk about this into more details because it is interesting later on, which is the difference between different platforms. For example, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube Shorts, they have similarities, but they also have differences that you want to be aware of. We can talk about those soon. But as a rule of thumb, for example, on Instagram, 7-second videos performed really, really well. And this usually you might think, oh, but what can I say in 7 seconds? Hello, everyone. And that's it. No, of course not. But that's what I'm saying. There are different formats. And for example, for this 7-second one, you might want to put some B-roll. B-roll maybe is just content, 7-second clip of you when you record yourself from your camera having a coaching session with your client, or maybe when you do an activity. So B-roll is content filmed, let's say, with your phone when you're doing an activity. And then on top of that, you might want to put your hook. So for example, how to grab attention on TikTok, for example. This is not that good of a hook, but you put your hook, and then you might want to put a text box saying, read the caption below, because that's where you will find your answer. So on Instagram, this sort of videos, I found that they can perform really well for some creators. So 7 seconds or less B-roll, then you can have a looping sound. This is a sound which you don't recognize that is finished, and it sort of loops back, so you don't realize the time has passed. You can even make it shorter, 4 or 5 seconds. You wouldn't realize because it's a looping sound. But don't get too complicated in this. Just remember this format: B-roll, short, hook, plus read the caption, and the value you give in caption, the how to you put in caption. So that's 7 seconds or less perform good. Then if you want to talk to the camera, I'm usually aiming between 20 to 30 seconds. It used to be more, but I've seen that 20 to 30 seconds is short and long enough in order to retain attention. Everything after that, people, scroll. It's like you have to be really good. Your editing has to be on point or your message has to be very powerful if you want people to really stick around for more than that. So these are two I go for Instagram. On TikTok, I would say it's a bit more different. Usually I would still say up to 30 seconds, but they are pushing more and more the longer form content. That means content above 1 minute. But my take is maybe get first good at creating good performing short content, and maybe then transition to longer, because you have to be very concise with your speech. The sort of communication has to be clear, to the point, punchy. You want to eliminate the fluff. That's a big one, because you might wonder, how can I say enough in 20-30 seconds? You want to only leave that's why scripting is also important, because you want to only leave the golden nuggets. The juice from what I'm saying is not needed. And sometimes you don't have to do this in scripting. You can add this after. You want to remove all the breaks, all the empty seconds from your speech. You want to make it fast. You want people to not have a chance to think, what am I doing here? Or you don't want to give them a break. You want to keep them hooked throughout. And that's a good lesson. Remove the space between what your sentences or even words, and keep only what's critical. Like, if I say this sentence, would this repeat what I've already said? Would this add extra value? Is this must know or nice to have? So always try to be harsh, and it's not going to come easily. It's not going to come from the beginning. It's, again, a lot of practice, but you have to be ruthless with your content. And it's scary as it sounds, that's what's going to make the difference. Again, what I'm saying is what I'm observing in general. There can be exceptions, and I know cases which don't go by the things that I'm sharing now and still perform good. I'm just sharing what I've seen performs well in general, like the sort of rule of thumb that I'm seeing. So yeah, that's one thing.
That's brilliant. No, that's really clear, actually. I mean, just in terms of taking out all the spacing in the speech and everything else, I mean, are you able to recommend any particular programs for that?
Yeah, sure thing. So I'll give you two of my favorite apps, the apps that I use for content creation. Some of the best creators in the world use these ones as well. So for video editing, you can obviously edit the videos directly in TikTok or in Instagram. Instagram had some glitches, it's getting better. But, many, for example, TikTok creators, they do edit in TikTok. And some even say it's even better because the algorithm knows that you edit in within the app and they can read the words. For example, it's just, some say it's better. I wouldn't worry about this. My practice is I use CapCut. CapCut editor is where, for example, you can add your videos, you can edit it, and I think it's fairly simple. They have tutorials directly on the app. Otherwise, just use YouTube or TikTok and put your question. How do I do this on CapCut? Or first of all, how to use CapCut for beginners? And watch 10 minutes, 20 minutes to get an idea, but then don't consume too much. Just get into the doing. Upload your first video, and then you're gonna see what you need to learn. How do I cut a part or things like this. So that's one thing. And I'm saying this, maybe it's a bit higher level to start with CapCut rather than directly in TikTok, only because it's easier when it comes to repurposing. So repurposing means you take a reel and you post it on YouTube, on TikTok, on Instagram, and it's just easier compared to when you have it on TikTok, because then if you download it for TikTok, you're going to have the TikTok sign on it and it gets more complicated. So that's why I recommend CapCut. Now, if you're, really a beginner and you're on TikTok and that's where you want to post and grow, then I think it's even easier for you to get started on TikTok directly. It's very intuitive, it's easy, kind of, and it might be, the first step for you to take to get started with editing in TikTok. Now, if you're using CapCut, for example, and you have videos where you talk to the camera and you give some sort of values, I then use this app called Captions, like this, Captions. And what this app helps me do is add automatic captions to my videos. Now, you can do that in CapCut as well. They have, this feature where you can add automatic captions. That means you don't have to write it line by line. You can just correct some of the words, go over it. But I choose captions because it's more fun, more dynamic. It's the sort of captions that you see in the famous reels of other creators. It's like bigger, more colorful. So it's very easy. You press like the button and it does everything for you, and then you can adjust it. But these two apps together, CapCut plus Captions, can save you a lot of time and can really, move the needle and push you forward. And yeah, I recommend this combination. It's effective, and Caption saves also a lot of time for the results that it gives.
And does that take out the gaps, or is that Caption? Is that CapCut that does that?
So the gaps is you will have to do that manually in CapCut. You will have to, to remove that, but you will see that it's not that hard. Once you learn it, you have to press one button, which is basically breaks the video at the moment that you want, and then you select the ending part, and then you just click on that little piece that you want out, and then press delete. So it sounds more complicated when I say it. The best option for you, Selena, would be upload your video, then go on TikTok or YouTube to see how to do X thing. For example, how to cut parts of the videos, and then literally do it side by side with the person showing you how to do it. So you will remove those bits in CapCut or directly on TikTok. You can easily do that if you edit directly on TikTok.
Great. No, that sounds a really good and quite simplistic way of getting started. I think, as I say, I certainly, when you go onto a new platform, you just feel completely overwhelmed and then you end up doing absolutely nothing. So I think that's a pretty foolproof way of getting started. So I better get started, I suppose. So thank you for that. No, that makes sense.
Yeah, this would get started, at the end of the day, there are so many things you can do, so many tips, tricks, strategies.
And that's the problem. There's too many. You need to simplify really and bring it in. And I think to get started on anything, otherwise it's so huge that it just becomes some monolith and you just can't get started anywhere.
Yes, and that's, if you remember in the beginning of the conversation, I said, forget about everything. Focus on 2-3 of your, top favorite creators. Find 2-3 that have good results and learn from them in the beginning. And then, you can obviously, the more you learn, the more, you can choose others, you can learn from others. But first, try to be focused, because otherwise you will get lost in all the noise, and it's just, and also very important. Many of us, especially for perfectionists, we tend to consume a lot of information before, because we think I'm just learning more and then I'll do it. But let me tell you, Selena, as a perfectionist myself, the biggest progress comes not when I learn a lot beforehand, is when I do it and I learn while I do it. So rather than keep, let's say, consuming content on content creation, I would say, because that's, feels like it's progress, but it's not really progress if we are to really think about it. It is, but not as much as we think it is. Just start little, like create your first video, and then then you put it out, and then you want to create your second one and put it out, and you want to learn as you go. And another very useful thing that I recommend, if you have the possibility, the financial capability, is to find, if possible, a program to help you with your goal. So for example, Selena, you want to, get on TikTok, grow your account and get leads, right? Well, I would really recommend, if you have the capacity, to get, a coach on it, or to get enrolled into a program that can help you with this. Why? Because as you said, there's so much, and these programs usually help you. They don't do the work for you, but they show you where to invest your time and energy from all the possibilities that you have. And for that, that is worth it, because, you want to know what to focus on. There's so much and you don't know on what to focus on. So if there's a chance, you can find a program that, you've heard good things about, or you read great reviews, or there's like credibility around it, and you have the possibility, then I strongly recommend you join one of these, because instead of, spending 1 year, maybe you can spend 3-4 months to get to the same results, because this is what these programs do for you. And for example, for anyone interested, one of the program I was actually part of, and it was very, very useful, and I cannot recommend it enough, is called Reels Millionaire by Dan Thomas and Travis Brown. The program is called How to Get to 1 million views in 90 days. And they teach you a lot about content creation, especially for Instagram. And it just, a program like this can really help you a lot, because these people have the resources, they have the experience, and so if there's a possibility, rather than trying to figuring out everything yourself, try to get some mentorship or help along the way.
No, that's great. And exactly. And as a coach, I would recommend all of those things, particularly in my niche as well. So yeah, absolutely. Get somebody to help you with, to bring you up to speed, really, and learn from their mistakes. No, I totally agree with that.
Yeah. And before anything, I wanted to say, because, you started this idea with, I want to get leads with TikTok. And I want you to know that this is one of the biggest marketing and sales mechanism there are out there right now. Platforms like TikTok, like Instagram, is one of the biggest things you can do in order to get leads and convert clients, because there are so many. Most of the people are on these platforms. What you have to do is to, first of all, learn how to grab attention, and then how to direct attention. That means I first capture your attention, then I tell you, oh, go get my free link magnet from my link in bio. Then I capture you with an email sequence or whatever. But there are so many people, and the whole online business niche right now, so many of the coaches, that's how they make their money and get the clients. It's via social media. So you want to be there, and forget things like TikTok is only for dancing. That's not true, because TikTok is one of the biggest search engines in the world. It's a place where people like you and me hang out, search for things. They don't go on Google anymore and search for how to do X. They search that on TikTok. And if you have content that can solve their problem, and then you nurture it, then that person can totally become your lead, and then your client. So I really want to emphasize, the importance on being on these platforms, and also the importance of creating a presence on several platforms. Of course, in the beginning, you might want to focus on one because it's overwhelming, but if you can implement systems in order to, repurpose your content on multiple platforms, I recommend you also do that as soon as possible, because many times one single piece of content can be shared on multiple platforms. And sometimes it only takes let's say 20 minutes to set up an automatic tool that republishes content from TikTok to Instagram and YouTube Shorts. And that's also, let's say, a pro tip, but it's important to have that presence on multiple platforms. Of course, it always comes down to your goal and your objective and how far you want to go. And that's why, again, it's very important to know what you want out of it, like to be very clear on what's your goal and an objective. And because then you can obviously measure results, and if you achieve that, and you can know what to do next.
No, I think everything you've said there is really great. And I think it's enough to get started, and quite rightly too, because I think there is so much out there, and there is more than one way. And I think that's the issue. I think we have been almost like led to believe that there is, maybe 2 or 3 ways to really do it. But actually, you're right. There's more than one way to do anything. And it does really depend on your goals. And I think, thank you for bringing that up, because I think it's really important. And I think sometimes we forget, we get onto these platforms and we don't really know why we're there, or we know why we're there, but we just have no clue as to get to, the next stage, which is stage B. How do we engage with these people? Because I think a lot of people are now getting wise to the fact you don't need a huge following to monetize your market, but you do need to do it effectively. Whatever you're doing, it needs to be effective, and it needs to be effective fairly early on. So yeah, thank you for
Got
that.
it, Selena. And that's I will end this conversation only with this thing. Get out of your head and into the doing. That's the biggest differentiator ever. You just have to, be action oriented.
Great hook right there.
Yeah, but focus on the doing, and then iteration and results will inevitably come. But you have to get out of here and start doing small as possible. Start, but one day at a time. You want to do it. Just do it, and that's it. Cool.
Right,
okay.
that's fantastic.
Well, thank you,
Lovely.
Selena. Thank you, dear audience, for sticking till the end. I hope this was helpful. And I'm actually planning, to do more of this. If, you guys think this was helpful, so let me know in the comments below. But I wish you all a great, great day. Thank you for sticking till the end, and see you all to the next episode of the Coach Tribe podcast. Have a good one.
Hope you enjoyed this episode.
We'll be releasing every Wednesday, so make sure to
Subscribe
and rate us 5 stars where you're listening to this show to give others a chance to discover it too.